Hi everybody, today we're going to be talking about histology of the male and the female reproductive system. So we're first going to be looking at an image of an ovary. So this is an image of an ovary, and what you see is many circles, and you see them all different sizes. So you can see some big circles, and then you can faintly see some small circles in the periphery too as well. This is not a human ovary. This is probably a cat ovary. So they do have more offspring than human ovaries, than humans. So you are going to see more follicles in here. Okay, so what are these circles here? Well, let's just talk about a female cycle really quick. A female cycle can last anywhere from 28 to 30 days. And days 1 through 14, this is preparation, okay? Preparation for ovulation, okay? And ovulation is the term for the release of an egg. And ovulation usually occurs on day 14, okay? And so if we go back all the way to start from day 1, usually about day 1 through 5, is a female's menstrual cycle. So a lot of people think that their menstrual cycle is actually at the end of the cycle. It is actually in the beginning. So about day 1 through 5 is the menses, okay? And females are really unique in the fact that they are born with all of their eggs ready to be selected every month. And usually each ovary switches off. So the right one does it 1 month, the left one does it the other month. But if you can see these small little circles in here, these are all what's called follicles. They're called primordial follicles that are holding eggs. And these eggs, a fancy word for them is oocytes, they're all arrested in meiosis 1. And so every month, a female will go select a couple of those oocytes that were in those follicles. And a follicle is just kind of like a cocoon or like a shell that provides nourishment for the developing egg. And so the older you are, the less eggs, so to say, that you have to choose from. All right, so day 1 through 5 is menses. Usually about day 3 is when you start selecting your oocytes there. And then what happens is those follicles, they get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And when you get closer to ovulation, which is on day 14, now the ovulation is the release of one of those eggs, we get to what's called a Graafian follicle. And Graafian is named after the individual who had discovered this follicle. Mature follicle, antral follicle, vesicular follicle. There's a lot of different names. Vesicular follicle. There's a lot of different names for this follicle, but I'm just going to tell you right here, this is a nice looking Graafian follicle. So let's go ahead and take a closer look. This is going to be just to give you a frame of reference of days. This is probably going to appear anywhere from day 10 to day 12. You would see this Graafian follicle. And the egg is right there in the center there. So let's take a closer look. And we get a closer look of this Graafian follicle that we can see here. This is actually a fluid cavity, okay? And these are actually cells. And these cells, during the first phase of the cycle, these cells produce estrogen. So you're predominantly producing the hormone estrogen, usually around anywhere from day 8 all the way through, actually through your entire cycle, but in higher amounts from like 8 to day 12. And the higher amounts of estrogen that you pump out each day, it kind of tells your brain that this egg is ready to go. It's ready to be released. And so this egg is going through phases of meiosis, and by the time we reach day 14, ovulation, we would release this egg out of the ovary into the fallopian tube. All right, and so that would be due to signals that come down from the brain that would cause this release. Okay, there's a hormone called luteinizing hormone that you guys had learned about in the endocrine system. Okay, the other hormone, which was called follicle stimulating hormone, that helped this egg in its follicle progress and get bigger from day 3 when we selected them. So on day 14, you ovulate this egg and you do ovulate the cells around it. And then it would travel. It takes about 7 to 10 days. It's a 7 to 10 day journey as it travels through the fallopian tube to reach the uterus. And if that egg was fertilized, it usually gets fertilized right after it's ovulated. Usually fertilization occurs within 24 hours of ovulation. Okay, if that egg was fertilized by a sperm, that egg would embed into the uterine wall and it would potentially develop into a embryo and then a fetus. Okay, So that is the female reproductive tract, okay? Now the female is on a cycle, okay? The female was on a cycle here. So ovulation is on day 14. We have that 7 to 10 day journey. And then if there is no fertilization, there's no hormone release, the uterine wall will be shut off and the whole cycle starts again. Males, they do not have a cycle, okay? So this is actually a cross section of the testes. This is a cross section. I'll write this here, a cross section of the testes, okay? And what you're looking at, all of these circular structures right here, all of these circular structures, these are called seminiferous tubules. These are called seminiferous tubules. And they're basically little sperm factories in there. Okay, so this is a cross section of one testicle, and we're going to zoom in a little bit closer. Okay, and you can see them now just a little bit closer here. And looking at all these seminiferous tubules, what you have here, you're going to have an outer row of darker cells. And these outer row of darker cells here, these are called spermatogonia, but they're basically stem cells. And stem cells, this is what the sperm grows from. Stem cells are, these are cells that rapidly grow. These are what cells derive from, okay? And so these sperm stem cells are where all the sperm is going to emerge from. And then you do have, I'm going to get a little bit closer up. So these are all the stem cells right here. They're called spermatogonia. Now we can see some other cells that are through here. This is all the sperm. These sperm cells are actually called spermatocytes. They're going through meiosis 1 and meiosis 2. Remember, the purpose of going through meiosis 1 and meiosis 2 is to reduce the chromosome number to 23 chromosomes and no pairs, a haploid, right? And so you can see here, this meiosis 1 and then meiosis 2 would be occurring here. And then what happens is a tail emerges at the lumen of this seminiferous tubule. So in the center there, we're going to see the sperm with a flat head. And then you're going to have our tail. That tail is known as a flagellum. It's our only example in the human body of a flagellum. You can find flagellum on other types of species of like bacteria and protists and stuff. And so you can see these heads just starting to emerge here, and the cytoplasm from the cell that they once came from just kind of sloughs off. All right, so that is a seminiferous tubule.